I've got people in defense and intelligence in the US telling me that whatever this phenomenon is, it engages in a mental way, in almost a telepathic way with human beings. I mean, the debunkers can scoff as much as they like. When people are telling me this, I can't dismiss it. And more importantly, I've seen people who purport to be able to do what I think Stephen Greer calls CE5, and I can't dismiss it. I'm told, and I've been told this by multiple sources, that there are people of extreme conservative religious viewpoints inside the CIA and also inside the Defense Intelligence Agency and other agencies who are hostile to revealing the extent of what the US government knows. And I do know
Because they believe it's connected to what's demonic?
They think it's demonic. They think it's satanic. And who knows? I mean, I'm not religious, but it might be. Maybe we're all going down a very dangerous path.
Right. Okay, so this question comes from Harry White. He wants to know if you've seen any orbs or any UFO phenomenon, or what is his opinion with the summoners?
Summoners. I don't know what he means. Oh, you mean CE5, that sort of thing. I'll assume that's what he means.
Okay.
I haven't had any direct experiences myself with the phenomenon. I wish I had. I'd love it if
make your job easier.
Wouldn't it be fantastic? I have been. There's a guy called Damien Knott, N-O-T-T, here in Australia, who's quite astonishing with his ability to know when the phenomenon is about to manifest itself. And I remember I was sitting with him on a sofa in his house in Pennant Hills in northwestern Sydney, and he just suddenly went, "Oh, excuse me," grabbed a camera, went outside, pointed it up in the air, and got vision of an object moving erratically across the sky. And I said, "How did you know that was going to be there?" And he went, I don't know. I just don't know. I've asked people, I've said to people, is there a legitimate reason why we're not allowed to know about what it is that the United States government knows, the extent of what it knows about the phenomenon? And nobody that I've spoken to has been able to give me a good answer. Nobody's been able to give me any solid national security reason. In fact, they've suggested that it's just been kept secret for no good reason. It's just a relic of the Cold War. And now there is a small cluster of generals, admirals, and spooks and politicians who are a bit embarrassed that if it all does become public, they're going to have to admit that they've lied for years to the American public, that presidents have been deceived, and there's probably been criminal contempts of Congress. And this is why there should be hearings in Congress. But I can understand why it might be necessary for some of those hearings to be held in camera, because the people that America trusts with its secrets, the Congress, the oversight bodies like the Senate Intelligence Committee or the Armed Services Committee, they should at least have an opportunity to say to these people under oath, okay, we now know that there is a X issue that you've never revealed to us before about the United States knowing about UAPs, UFOs. Why haven't you told us about this before? What's that reason? And under oath in confidential hearing, they should be given an opportunity to explain that. And then, frankly, if they can't explain it, then the public should be told. But oddly, I, as a journalist, see I have a responsibility because I often get told things that I shouldn't. I have a responsibility to ensure that I'm not jeopardizing public safety or national security by inadvertently revealing something I shouldn't. So I've been giving people that opportunity along the way. I've been waiting for somebody to tell me, hey, listen, there's a really good reason for this. And look, I've had a number of explanations that I'm not quite sure about yet, but none of which I'm ready to talk about publicly. But I'm not satisfied that there is a good reason, and I want to hear it. So if there is one, tell me.
Can't they just say national security, and that's the reason why we didn't tell anyone?
Are you going to accept that kind of bullshit excuse? I'm not. I mean, I've been told so many times that something's a subject of national security, and I mean, I remember look at the warrantless wiretapping that was going on under the US legislation, where the National Security Agency and other government departments were essentially illegally allowed to warrantlessly wiretap hundreds of millions of innocent Americans in what was essentially an overreaction to 9/11. And it was a fundamental breach of the constitutional rights of freedoms of, being allowed to have a private conversation. Privacy is a right. And, we can't just glibly accept assertions of national security. Claims like that need to be tested. Tyranny starts when governments use secrets to conceal mistakes. And that's my worry here. My worry here is that the explanation for what has happened with the UFO phenomenon is purely and simply that years ago, some pompous general decided that it was better to keep it confidential because, we know better than the rest of you. And, we want to try and replicate this technology. That's assuming that we've recovered technology. And frankly, even though there's no good reason now for not revealing it, they've dug themselves so deep into a lie for so long, they don't know how to get out of it. They're worried about being excoriated and vilified in the court of public opinion. But they should be, frankly, if they've lied, if they've misled Congress. I mean, one of the things that, frankly, I just don't get, and this is something I really don't understand, is if you read Jacques Vallée's Forbidden Knowledge, Volume 4, it has the most extraordinary series of exchanges between Jacques Vallée, who's one of the godfathers of UFO research, and a guy called Richard Dick D'Amato, who was the staffer on the Senate Intelligence Committee, in a role very similar to the role that was played by Chris Mellon years later. And Dick D'Amato, back in the 1970s, was talking to Jacques Vallée openly in private conversation about how he was trying to get to the bottom of the government cover-up about UFOs. And I've approached Dick D'Amato, and he doesn't want to talk. And, he's probably bound by a security oath, but he was making no secret to Jacques Vallée, who mischievously put this in his diaries back in the 1970s, that he knew that as the person responsible, as the staffer responsible for probably the most important intelligence oversight body in the Congress, he couldn't get access to information that he knew existed. And this is what worries me. What worries me is that this may be a crisis of accountability. If the Wilson memo, for example, is a truthful and accurate document, what it means is essentially technology that is rightfully the possession and the property of the American people, if not the human race, is being divested into the private ownership of a private aerospace company and oversighted only by a very few people in government who are terrified of the secret getting out. And their efforts to back engineer this technology, allegedly, because of the incredible secrecy attached to the whole program, have been hindered because of their inability as scientists to be able to share data and discuss what they're looking at with other scientists. Imagine if, hypothetically, the United States is in possession of retrieved technology. Imagine, hypothetically, if the United States is sitting on an alien spacecraft or multiple spacecraft. Imagine if that was the case. Imagine if they've failed in 76 years to back engineer that technology. Don't you think there comes a time when they have to truthfully engage with the American public and say, we've lied to you, we're very sorry? And this is why I've actually floated in previous interviews the idea of a Truth and Reconciliation Commission. As a journalist, I covered the South African Truth and Reconciliation Commission, where, in quite a beautiful way, the evils of the apartheid regime under the racist government of South Africa before it became independent under Nelson Mandela, they were always covered up. And then they had a Truth and Reconciliation regime where killers, like the killers in the South African Security Service who'd literally murdered people for the state, were allowed to truthfully sit in public hearing and tell their story, knowing that they were being given full immunity and full indemnity. And frankly, I think that's what we should offer to the people who are hiding this secret, because it's far too important to have a purge, to go jumping on people and criticizing them for not revealing it. I suspect that their motivations for hiding it in the very beginning were quite honorable. We were in the Cold War, and we found a life form, to quote the general. I mean, I'm referring there to something that Tom DeLonge gave in an interview when he says he was told by a person he referred to as the general. It was the Cold War, and every day we lived in fear that, the world was about to fall apart. And then we found a life form. There was a different context during the Cold War that I think informed America's national security imperatives. I would have kept the secret. But if it is the case that the United States has recovered alien technology, and I don't know for sure that they have, but I suspect they have, then unless there's a good reason for continuing to conceal it, and I'd like to hear that, I think we need to provide a means for them to be exculpated and to be honourably recognised for bringing it out into the American public's knowledge. And if it is the case that the United States is sitting on technology, and I suspect it is, imagine what that technology could do for humanity. And imagine how we're being held back because of the fear, the cowardly fear of a few men in dark rooms who are hiding these secrets. Wouldn't it be a wonderful thing if we could usher in a new age of propulsion systems, energy, advances in technology that the world has never seen, pull human beings out of poverty? Be fantastic. Exploration, understand our solar system, understand our universe. These things could be achieved if there really is faster than light travel or some kind of anti-gravitic technology or propulsion system. And the interesting thing, Curt, is something out there is flying craft that appear to have these technologies. And the world just goes on. The Pentagon makes these admissions. It actually admits that it cannot prosaically explain this phenomenon, which is doing maneuvers and speeds far beyond our technology, instantaneous velocity, hypersonic maneuvers. And we just get on with our lives and politely ignore it like it's not happening. Or worse still, we give currency to some stupid debunker who comes up with some lame excuse that frankly doesn't make sense. It's time for people to wake up to themselves and realize that the United States, I know for sure, is sitting on secrets that it is not yet revealing. And I don't know why it's not doing that. But I have, in the course of my research, become privy to knowledge that makes me realize that they are concealing stuff. Now, if they're concealing technology, I think the public has a right to know about it, unless there's some solid national security reason that can be provided that explains why. So my only point is we need to provide a means, a system to facilitate them feeling okay about doing that. We need to provide people with essentially an indemnity against prosecution if they speak outside the constraints of their security oath, if they reveal crimes, if crimes have been committed. There has to be a full and open accounting. And frankly, you're not going to get that in the Congress at the moment. It's not going to happen. I don't care what some of the more optimistic predictors say. I don't think there is a mood in the Congress for any further disclosure. I think the UAP task force will be created into a permanent office in all likelihood, but it will be woefully underfunded. And like Project Blue Book, it'll eventually be dribbled out of existence. And frankly, the only way any impetus is going to be developed on this is if the public wakes up and realizes the awesome significance of what the Pentagon has already admitted.
Watch more podcast clips now on our YouTube channel. Go to Livewire Podcast Clips and watch more great podcast videos just like this one.